Iwo Jima, a small volcanic island in the Pacific Ocean, barely 8 square miles in size. No major cities, no civilian population, no obvious natural resources that would suggest it was worth fighting over. And yet, in 1945, this remote stretch of black volcanic rock became the setting for one of the most brutal and consequential battles of the Second World War. To understand why Iwo Jima mattered, we must first look at the broader situation in the Pacific during the final phase of the war. Japan was under immense pressure. The United States had been advancing steadily across the Pacific, capturing island after island, moving ever closer to the Japanese mainland. Each captured island brought American forces closer, not only in distance, but in psychological impact. Iwo Jima occupied a critical position between the Mariana Islands and Japan itself. For Japan, it served as an advanced warning station. Radar installations on the island could detect incoming American bombers, giving Japan precious time to prepare defenses. Fighter aircraft could be launched from Iwo Jima to intercept B-29 bombers before they reached their targets over Japan. For the United States, however, the island represented something else entirely: opportunity. If captured, Iwo Jima could become an emergency landing site for damaged bombers returning from missions over Japan. It could also serve as a base for long-range fighter escorts, dramatically improving the effectiveness of the air campaign. Both sides understood the island's value, and both sides knew that its fate would be decided at an enormous cost. Unlike earlier island battles, Japan adopted a radically different defensive strategy on Iwo Jima. There would be no large-scale attempts to repel the invasion at the shoreline. No dramatic, suicidal charges meant to overwhelm the enemy in the opening hours. Instead, Japanese forces prepared for a battle of endurance. Under the direction of General Tadamaki Kurabayashi, Iwo Jima was transformed into a vast underground fortress. Hundreds of caves, bunkers, and tunnels were carved into the volcanic rock. These positions were carefully interconnected, allowing defenders to move unseen, withdraw under pressure, and re-engage from unexpected directions. The objective was never outright victory. The objective was time, and to inflict casualties so severe that the enemy would hesitate before taking the next step toward Japan. When American Marines landed in February 1945, they encountered a battlefield unlike anything they had experienced before. Progress was slow and punishing. Every advance was contested. The enemy was rarely visible, but always present. What made the fighting especially brutal was that no area could ever truly be considered secure. Japanese soldiers remained concealed in caves and tunnels long after surface positions were lost. Some waited in complete silence for days or weeks, emerging only when conditions favored them. As a result, clearing these underground positions became one of the most dangerous and psychologically taxing aspects of the battle. Each cave presented an unknown threat. Each tunnel could conceal multiple exits. Marines were forced to operate with constant uncertainty, balancing speed against the risk of ambush. Amid this environment, another reality of the war emerged: prisoners of war. Japanese POWs were rare in the Pacific theater, but they did exist on Iwo Jima. Some were wounded. Others were physically exhausted. Many were victims of circumstances rather than choice. Assisting prisoners out of cave systems required extreme caution. The presence of POWs did not mean the surrounding area was safe. Hidden combatants could still be nearby, and the threat of sudden violence never fully disappeared. While the ground battle continued with relentless intensity, a parallel transformation was taking place above and around the island. As soon as sections of Iwo Jima were secured, its airfields became operational. These airfields were not secondary objectives, they were the very reason the island was being fought over. Aircraft such as the P-51 Mustang now had a forward base from which to operate. With extended range and speed, these fighters could escort B-29 bombers all the way to Japan and back. For the first time, American bombers had continuous fighter protection throughout their missions. Transport and liaison aircraft, including models such as the D-29 and the L-16, allowed personnel, supplies, and intelligence to move efficiently. What had once served as a Japanese early warning outpost was now a critical American hub supporting sustained air operations. Each successful emergency landing on Iwo Jima represented lives saved. Each takeoff meant another mission that could proceed with greater confidence and reduced risk. The strategic balance in the air shifted decisively. Yet on the ground, the battle remained far from over. Iwo Jima was not won by a single decisive maneuver or dramatic breakthrough. It was the result of countless small engagements, of squads advancing yard by yard, of positions taken and retaken, of exhaustion accumulating day after day. Within this environment, senior officers faced immense responsibility. Leaders such as Clifton B. Cates, Holland Smith, Harry Schmidt, and Franklin A. Hart were tasked with overseeing an operation that defied conventional expectations. Strategy had to evolve constantly in response to an enemy that refused to fight in predictable ways. Discussions among commanders were not limited to maps and objectives. They involved questions of sustainability, morale, and time. How long could the pace be maintained? What level of loss was acceptable? And how did the outcome of Iwo Jima influence the next phase of the war? The answers to these questions extended far beyond the island itself. When the fighting finally ended, the cost was almost beyond comprehension. What had begun as a strategic operation had turned into a prolonged struggle of attrition, measured not in miles gained but in lives lost. Casualties on both sides reached into the tens of thousands, a staggering toll for an island of such limited size. For the United States Marine Corps, Iwo Jima became one of the bloodiest and most demanding battles in its entire history, an engagement that would be studied, remembered, and mourned for generations. Entire units were depleted. Commanders were forced to make decisions under relentless pressure, knowing that every advance came at a severe human cost. For Japan, the battle represented yet another irreversible loss in a war that was rapidly drawing closer to its homeland. The defenders of Iwo Jima fought with the understanding that retreat was not an option and survival was unlikely. Their resistance was not intended to preserve the island, but to serve a greater strategic purpose, to delay the enemy and to demonstrate the price of continued advance. In that sense, the outcome was never measured solely by territory held, but by endurance and sacrifice. Yet despite the immense losses, Iwo Jima achieved its strategic purpose. With the island secured, American air operations against Japan entered a new and more aggressive phase. The capture of Iwo Jima fundamentally altered the dynamics of the air war. Bomber missions could now be flown with greater confidence, supported by long-range fighter escorts and backed by a critical emergency landing site for damaged aircraft. Thousands of airmen owed their survival to the existence of this small island, now firmly under American control. What had once been a barrier became a bridge, linking distant bases to the skies over Japan. The lessons learned on Iwo Jima resonated far beyond the island itself. Military planners carefully studied every aspect of the battle: the underground defenses, the cost of frontal assaults, the psychological strain on troops, and the sheer difficulty of dislodging a determined enemy from prepared positions. These lessons directly shaped the planning of subsequent operations, most notably the Battle of Okinawa, where many of the same challenges would appear on an even larger scale. More importantly, Iwo Jima profoundly influenced how American leadership evaluated the potential invasion of the Japanese mainland. The battle offered a grim preview of what such an operation might entail. If an island defended by a single garrison could exact such a heavy toll, what would be the cost of fighting across the home islands of Japan themselves? This question loomed heavily over strategic discussions in the final months of the war. In this sense, Iwo Jima was more than a battlefield. It was a warning. It demonstrated with unmistakable clarity how fiercely Japan would defend its territory and how devastating such confrontations could become for both sides. The island became a measure of resolve, a symbol of what total war demanded when neither side was willing or able to step back. Today, Iwo Jima stands as more than a historical location. It endures as a symbol of courage, endurance, and sacrifice, but also as a reminder of the brutal realities of modern warfare. It shows how even the smallest and most remote pieces of land can carry enormous strategic importance, and how decisions made far from the front lines can lead to consequences paid for in blood. The legacy of Iwo Jima is not only found in military textbooks or memorials, but in the broader understanding of what war ultimately costs. Victory is rarely sudden, rarely clean, and almost never free. A small island, an immense sacrifice, and a lasting imprint on the course of modern history. If you appreciate restored historical footage and stories like this, make sure to subscribe to History Safe. Your support helps keep these rare moments from the past alive and accessible. Don't forget to like the video, leave a comment, and share it with others who love history. Every interaction helps History Safe uncover, restore, and bring more forgotten footage back to life. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more incredible history.